Volvo knows it needs more SUVs, and it needs more electric vehicles. This EC40 model, originally known as the C40 Recharge, delivers both in one package and shows clearly the direction the brand is heading in the future. There's a base rear-driven version and a state-of-the-art fully electric all-wheel drive powertrain that offers a WLTP-rated range of up to 340 miles on a single charge and an output of up to 442 horsepower. The drawback is premium pricing, but otherwise a lot of boxes seem to have been ticked here.
Volvo's EC40 shows the Swedish brand really getting into gear with its EVs. Here we're going to find out why. Given that Volvo's been making overt noises about full electrification for a decade now, it is something of a surprise to realise that at its launch in 2022, the model that we're looking at here introduced the company's very first exclusively electric model line. Back then it was called the C40 Recharge, a car that was substantially updated in 2023 and then renamed the EC40 in early 2024. As you might expect, the EC40 borrows everything that matters from Volvo's very first all-electric model, the XC40 Recharge Pure Electric, now known as the EX40, but closed that powertrain with a more unique styling and a more swept-back coupe-style silhouette. Think of the two models as something akin to what Audi already offers in this segment with the Q4 e-tron and the Q4 Sportback e-tron, and you'll be somewhere close to what Volvo's trying to achieve here. Like the EX40, the EC40 will be sold primarily online, and as with that car, it rolls down the production lines of Volvo's Belgian factory in Ghent. To find out more, you're going to need the usual comprehensive car and driving road test. As with the EX40, there are three flavours of EC40 on offer. Most customers will opt for the 69 kilowatt-hour single motor version, which was once in this car's original C40 Recharge form, front driven, but the Swedish maker has now instead moved the e-motor to the rear axle and slightly uprated its output to 238 horsepower, without any real impact on performance actually. Rest to 62 is dispatched in 7.3 seconds on the way to 112 miles an hour top speed, which these days all Volvos share. EV range is WLTP-rated at up to 299 miles. That's 4 miles further than with the equivalent base EX40. Ideally though, you'll want to stretch at least as far as the mid-level single motor extended range variant. That's the mid-level rear-driven model that we're trying here. That has 252 horsepower and uses a larger 78 kilowatt-hour battery, providing for a 345 mile range. That's 2 miles further than the equivalent EX40. The faster EC40 alternative is the twin motor all-wheel drive variant, which uses a larger 82 kilowatt-hour battery pack and twin electric motor setup, and that has adopted different front and rear e-motors with 150 HP and 258 HP respectively. These provide for a prodigious 408 HP total power output in the standard twin motor model, but if for some reason that is unfathomably not enough, you can boost it further to 442 horsepower with the optional performance software upgrade that comes included with the two added Black Edition trim grades. This upgrade was one of the few changes introduced as part of this design's transition to EC40 status. Even with the standard twin motor EC40, performance is startling, a massive 670 Nm of torque, at which point the main motor is spinning at a heady 14,000 RPM, and that catapults the car to 62 in just 4.7 seconds. EV range with a twin motor EC40 is up to 340 miles. That's 8 miles further than the equivalent EX40, with a 337 mile figure claimed for the twin motor performance version. Whatever kind of EC40 you choose, to get that kind of range figure that Volvo claims, you'll have to engage what the Swedish maker calls one-pedal drive, and that's selectable from the driving menu provided in the centre dash screen there. This dramatically increases the regenerative braking effect when you come off the throttle, to the point actually where the brake pedal will hardly ever be actually needed. Otherwise, you'll be driving with an automatic brake regeneration mode that slows itself at lower speeds or when you're approaching roundabouts and junctions, but which otherwise coasts. Unlike with many rivals, there are no steering wheel paddle shifters which would allow you to manually control the regenerative braking system. Like Tesla, Volvo doesn't trust you with that. As with Volvo's near identically engineered Polestar 2 close cousin, the braking system's excellent. It seamlessly blends friction and regen retardation. On the subject of the Polestar 2, by the way, we should point out that the EV mileage figures we gave earlier on for this Volvo are significantly down on equivalent versions of that car. Reasons probably to do with weight. All electric vehicles are heavy, of course, but this one is particularly weighed down, and that's because although it's only offered as an EV, the CMA chassis that it sits on was originally engineered around accommodating bulky petrol and diesel engines up front. It is interesting that this car's direct cousin, the Polestar 2, feels a little less constricted by the same platform and the same powertrain combination. And equally interesting that if the Polestar 2 had ended up being a Volvo, as was originally planned actually, then this EC40 probably wouldn't even exist. You'll certainly feel that weight at speed through tight corners. Not that you're going to really want to be throwing this car about though. Top twin motor version is heavier than the brand's hulking great XC90 SUV, over 2.1 tonnes, which is a substantial 460 kilos more than an equivalent XC40 combustion model. At least ride quality though is pleasantly supple, and it's better than most similarly sized EV rivals too. The EC40 does of course sit on the same McPherson strut front and multi-link rear suspension arrangement as the EX40. That doesn't deliver a very sharp feel through those bends, but the distinctly modest level of steering feedback that you get through this electric steering rack doesn't really encourage you to seek that anyway, even if you use the central screen option that switches the steering to its firmer setting. Visual changes as part of the C40 Recharge model's rebrand are limited to badging and the fact that this EC40 has a black roof. For its first year of production, the C40 Recharge also had a black roof, but later cars switched instead to a body-coloured roof. Well, now black is back. This swept-back silhouette was the idea of a young stylist in Volvo's exterior design team, Yuri Zamkovenka. He looked at the boxy silhouette of the original XC40 and thought a rather more sleekly shaped version might widen its appeal. The rough sketch he jotted down pleased the Swedish brand's then head stylist, T. John Mayer, and the C40 Recharge was born. As the C-designated model badge suggests, it's coupe-like, but Volvo prefers to suggest that this letter stands instead for crossover, which is probably accurate. This model's squat muscularity is emphasised by its tall rear deck and the big wheels that sit in black plastic-clad arches. Obviously, the major way that this car differs from the EX40 is with the roofline, which here slopes 69mm lower. Total length is 6 mils shorter than that car too, but the width and wheelbase dimensions are identical. Zamkovenka says his favourite view of this car is what he calls the rear 7/8 perspective, which best shows the chunky swept-back silhouette and the contrast roof, and the exaggerated stance delivered by the huge alloy rims, which are either 19 or, as in this case, 20 inches in size and feature aerodynamic styling influenced by the company's 360C concept car of 2018. The front end finishing with its unnecessary closed grille is arguably less successful, with a level of indecision evident between combustion and EV schools of design. Future Volvo EVs will have a lot more overtaking presence than this, but there are still some nice touches, like the angled lower bumper corner sections with their integrated black fog lamp panels, and the way the brand's familiar Thor's hammer headlights are augmented here with little pixel LEDs. They automatically adjust to light conditions and they switch on and off independently to optimize the lighting pattern. These segmented vertical rear LED lamps are equally emblematic, providing a testament to the engineering challenge of extending one big lamp along the roofline edging, managed here, while also creating a modern take on familiar design. There are two spoilers, a subtle lower one and a larger protuberance on top of the rear screen, with rather interesting squared off corner segments. Right, what about the interior? Is that as young and different as the exterior tries to be? Well, not really, to be frank. Volvo says the interior design here is all about light and freedom of space, which is why there's lots of glass and a big panoramic roof, which enhances the areas of the cabin. But in truth, the cabin here is starting to slightly feel its age in comparison to the most modern of its many competitors. Still, the brand has done its best to lift things, notably with the striated plastic trimming panels that you get if you avoid base level trim, which illuminate translucently at night. There are a few giveaways to this Volvo's battery-powered remit, save for a few EV-specific electronic gauges. There's no starter button. There's just a blanking plate here, where that would be on a petrol XC40. Delving to the workings of the central portrait-style 9-inch screen, and you'll find that the infotainment system, that's powered by Android, and that means that you get a raft of over-the-air Google features, including Maps and YouTube Music built in. The other screen you'll be using is the 12.3-inch progressive driver display that you view through this pleasingly chunky 3-spoke wheel. As for cabin practicality, well, there are plenty of stowage receptacles, plus some nice touches like a lift-out centre bin and a hook that folds out of the glove box for handbags or takeaways. The EC40 delivered Volvo's first leather-free interior, the main upholstery option containing naturally renewable wool fibres. The alternative uses a combination of suede textile made of recycled plastic and Microtech material. Are there issues with this cabin? Well, not too many. There is a huge D-pillar blind spot that mars your all-round rearward vision, and you might object to the fact that the sunroof is fixed unless you stretch to top trim. Also that Apple CarPlay needs a wired connection, or that the Nappa leather on the steering wheel feels a bit like foam rubber. Overall, probably the most irritating thing though is the way that you have to delve into the central screen menus for the one-pedal drive brake regeneration option that you might want to frequently access to control the way that the car slows from speed. Time to take a look in the rear. You'd expect this crossover model's more coupe-like silhouette and the centrally sighted battery pack beneath the floor might together rather restrict headroom back here. Actually, it's not too bad once you're in, although taller folk will inevitably find their heads brushing the ceiling. Oh yeah, the ceiling, as we mentioned earlier, it's mainly glass, which is just as well, because otherwise this rear part of the cabin really would feel dark and pokey. That's thanks to the huge D-pillar blind spot we mentioned earlier on. It is disappointing too that an electric vehicle with no need for a transmission tunnel nevertheless has one that's so big that it's almost impossible for an adult to sit in the centre back here. Such are the issues with joint use of the same platform, of course, for combustion models and EVs. You would have none of this and much more stretch out room in a ground up EV, something in this class like a Kia EV6 or a Hyundai Ioniq 5. As you'd expect, given the fact that this car has the same 2,702mm wheelbase as an EX40, shoulder and legroom are exactly the same as in that car, quite reasonable in other words, and there's lots of room to slide your brogues underneath each front seat. Because of the underfloor battery pack, the seat bench back here doesn't slide unfortunately, nor does the backrest recline, but the rear headrests are well placed and they're comfortable, and if you avoid base trim, the upholstery is also heated. There's also a central armrest incorporating a pair of cup holders, plus beverages can also sit in the provided moulded recesses in the little carpeted door pockets. In addition, there are netted seat back pockets and you can get stuff into little storage trays between the seat base edges and the doors. We mentioned the underfloor battery pack. Well, Volvo's positioned that so boot space isn't too compromised. This standard powered tailgate, which can be operated with a kick action if you avoid entry-level trim, rises to reveal 404 litres of that if you load to the glass line, only 6 litres less than the EX40. You can fit 844 litres of luggage into an EC40 if you load to the roof. There are some really nice convenience touches here too, principally this neat flexible load floor with grocery bag holder feature fitted to mid and top trim levels. With this, the leading edge of the load floor can rise and divide the space laterally to stop your shopping from sliding around. The 3 hinges of this divider also stand proud of the top edge, giving you hooks from which you can hang your shopping bags. The boot opening is wide and there's no awkward lip to get things over. Delve down under the floor here and a bit more space is available, although really not enough to accommodate a spare wheel. So if you need more room, then a ski hatch is provided for longer items. That is some compensation for the fact that you can't have the useful 40-20-40 rear seat back split that some rivals do offer. Fold the rear bench forward and up to 844 litres of total space is revealed, or up to 1196 if you load up to the roof. Now you might have noticed the absence of charging leads back here. That's because they're stored elsewhere in the car, so let's show you that. Now because no engine is needed beneath this clamshell bonnet, Volvo's used the space to create a frunk, a 31 litre space that's perfect for the 2 provided charge leads. It can't really accommodate very much else though. It is worth pointing out that one of these standard charge leads is for a 3-pin plug. Some rivals will charge you extra for that, and that the 3-pin one is usefully long too, 7 metres in fact. Volvo realised that it might need to be to reach a domestic socket. From launch, the original version of this model cost £1,500 more than its conventional hatch equivalent, which did seem a bit unreasonable, although Audi, of course, does do the same thing with its 2 Q4 e-tron models. Anyway, with the EC40, Volvo's got with the programme and priced it the same as the equivalent version of its EX40 counterpart. Although, because unlike the EX40, you can't have the brand's base core level of trim, prices do start a bit higher, from around £52,500 as we filmed in late 2024. There are 4 levels of trim, plus Black Edition, this Ultra version, and top Ultra Black Edition. That base price gets you the rear-driven 69 kWh single motor version, a base drivetrain only offered with the cheapest Plus spec. Most customers will want to find the £1,750 extra though for the bigger battery 78 kWh single motor extended range powertrain we're trying here, offered with all the trim levels. Then there's a step up in price of around £3,500 to get your EC40 with 2 motors instead of 1, and get yourself the 82 kWh all-wheel drive twin motor model. That costs from just under £60,000 in standard 408 HP form. If you want that twin motor drivetrain in the upgraded 442 horsepower performance guise, you'll need one of the 2 Black Edition spec models. Got all that? Excellent. Whatever kind of EC40 model you decide on, it's worth pointing out that almost no one who's considering this car will be thinking in terms of purchasing it outright. In most cases, actually, they won't even be buying it from a dealer. The original version of this model was one of the very first of the brand's cars to be offered exclusively online, which is the way that all future Volvo EVs will be sold. Now, you can still, of course, go into a dealership and order it if you want to, but it's probably easier just to go online and order it from home, probably using the Care by Volvo subscription service, which is the way that up to 95% of all EC40 models are apparently likely to be acquired. As for rivals, well, there are hardly any or a huge number, depending on your perspective on the kind of car this is. Now, if you agree with Volvo that the swept-back styling here positions this car differently in its segment as a coupe SUV, then the only real direct rival is Audi's Q4 Sportback e-tron, which in equivalent form costs around about the same. If you're prepared instead to broaden your perspective, though, we'd point out that you can also get coupe SUV looks for a lot less with this kind of mid-sized EV crossover with rarer models like the Xpeng G6 and the Smart #3. We won't go through the huge number of more conventional looking mid-sized EV crossovers in the class because they're more directly targeted by the EX40 model that we've covered in a separate film. If it's an EC40 though that you really want, you're going to need to know just how generous Volvo has been here with the standard spec. So let's take a look at that right now. All models get full LED headlights with active high beam, alloy wheels of at least 19 inches in size, a powered tailgate, rear parking sensors and auto headlamps and wipers. Plus there's roof rails and high gloss silver front and rear skid plates. There's also cruise control, adjustable steering force for the speed sensitive steering and hill descent control too with an off-road drive mode. Plus you'll get a heat pump in order to preserve range in cold weather. There's also keyless entry and Volvo's semi-autonomous pilot assist drive system with adaptive cruise control. Inside with all EC40s you'll get a 12.3-inch progressive driver display instrument cluster screen and there's a wireless phone charger and 2-zone electronic climate control. That's complete with Volvo's clean zone air quality system and pollen filter. The front seats have heating and lumbar support and also a couple of things which really lift the interior actually. Suede textile Microtech upholstery and the illuminated topography fascia inlays. Plus there's also a heated steering wheel, driver's seat power adjustment, LED front fog lamps, front parking sensors, heated rear seats and for the boot a load protection net and a flexible load floor with a built-in grocery bag holder. There's a very complete media connectivity offering too, accessed via a 9-inch central console portrait touchscreen with Volvo's Android infotainment setup developed by Google. This system includes worldwide navigation to Google Maps, advanced voice recognition by Google Assistant, and also access to the Google Play Store for a whole range of in-car apps, plus 4 years use of Google Automotive services. The adoption of Google Assistant brings huge advances in voice control. It allows customers to control the car's major functions, perform detailed web searches, and even connect to Google connected devices at home merely by speaking. And of course, via the central screen there, you can do all the conventional things too, like accessing an 8-speaker, 250-watt high-performance sound DAB audio system. You can also use Bluetooth or navigation or link in to wired Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto smartphone mirroring. There's YouTube access too. The touchscreen receives software updates over the air, so the system's functionality will continue to improve as the technology develops. And all of this is in addition to the Volvo Cars app. That's a connected services platform which is fitted to every new Volvo. Now this enables customers to control various aspects of their car's functions from their smartphone or their smartwatch or their tablet. For example, the car's cabin can be remotely heated or cooled before your journey starts. Doors can be unlocked or locked, and you can make the car's headlights flash, or you can sound the horn to help to locate the car in a crowded car park. The app also includes mapping that shows the location of charging stations and route planning, which will include stops at charging points if it's necessary. The top ultra spec we have here adds active bending pixel LED headlights, a 360-degree parking camera system, bigger 20-inch wheels, a panoramic sunroof, and a 12-speaker Harman Kardon 600-watt audio upgrade, all of which also feature with the Black Edition variants, which are marked out by a high-gloss black exterior trimming and onyx black paint. Now, because this is a Volvo, you'll expect it to be super safe, and you shouldn't be disappointed. The emergency brake assist and city safety autonomous braking systems can detect pedestrians and cyclists. Plus, there's a lane keeping aid, there's oncoming lane mitigation, there's runoff road protection, there's a road sign information display, and all the usual airbags, of course, including a driver's knee bag. There's an e-call system and Volvo's award-winning SIPS side impact protection setup. Avoid base trim, and you'll also get a blind spot information system, and that has steer assist. There's cross traffic alert with auto brake and rear collision mitigation and warning. We've already given you this EC40 model's operating range in our driving experience section. That's a maximum of 299 miles for the base single motor model, up to 345 miles for this single motor extended range version, which for reference actually is a fraction more than a comparable Audi Q4 Sportback 45 e-tron. It's up to 340 miles for the EC40 twin motor model. Across the range, Volvo claims an electrical consumption figure of between 3.6 and 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour. All these figures position this car competitively in the segment, but they are still some way from being up there with the class leaders. You can thank this Swedish maker's portly curb weight, which is around 2 tons, for that. Even to achieve this Volvo's stated figure, you're going to need to make a lot of use of that one-pedal drive feature that maximises regenerative braking. Still, at least charging times are competitive. The base single motor model DC charges at up to 135 kilowatts, and the single motor extended range one that we have here, DC charges at up to 155 kilowatts. That means 10 to 80% public DC charge now requires 33 minutes. The top twin motor version DC charges at up to 205 kilowatts, and that reduces the 10 to 80% DC charge time to 28 minutes. As for AC charging at home, well, a typical single-phase 7.4 kilowatt wall box, full charge from that will need 11 hours with the base 69 kilowatt hour battery, 12 hours with the mid-level 78 kilowatt hour battery, and 13 hours with the twin motor 82 kilowatt hour battery. You could reduce those durations to around 8 hours with a faster 3-phase 11 kilowatt supply. There are, of course, lots of taxation advantages in running an EV. With this one, as with its main rivals, you'll be rated at just 2% for BIK, benefit in kind taxation, until this is reviewed in spring 2025. There's the usual 3-year, 60,000 mile warranty, but the battery has its own 8-year, 100,000 mile cover. As usual with an EV, insurance isn't cheap, but residuals do look potentially strong. Servicing, that's every year or 18,000 miles, whichever comes around first, but the bill you get should be cheaper because there will be fewer consumables to replace, although do remember with an EV, tyre wear tends to be greater than with a combustion model. This model, in the company's own words, is the future of Volvo. Over 75% of the cars the company sells nowadays are SUVs, and in future, 100% of those will be EVs, but not yet, and certainly not at the kind of prices that the Swedish maker is asking for this EC40 in its current forms. For the time being, you can't help but feel that many of those who choose an EC40 are people who would have been quite satisfied with the EX40 crossover model it's based on. Now, Volvo talks about the need for the kind of younger demographic who will presumably find the EC40's more coupe style looks appealing, but then they add that it expects older folk to like it too. So make of that what you will. Ultimately, no one is quite sure how the EV market is going to develop precisely, but Volvo is keen to make sure all the bases are covered, and they've done just that right here.